What's happening, football fans, and welcome back to the N&M podcast, where today we bring you another instalment to the All Eyes On. And today we're doing All Eyes on Brighton, a side that has flattered to deceive in the last few seasons under Chris Hughton. Potter came in last season, got on playing some good football, but didn't quite finish respectable. 15th was okay, but they probably wanted higher. This season, I feel that they've started a lot better. But before we go into all that, we're going to talk about the man himself, Graham Potter. Now, he tends to play the three at the back, 3-5-2 or 3-4-1-2. His tactical style, he likes to play a lot of possession-based football. If you ever watch Brighton play, he likes to play possession. The players look after the ball, they move it around quickly. I think he's an half-decent manager. Everywhere he's been respected, hasn't he? You know, even at Swansea and was he at a club?
Ostersund's.
Yeah, so, exactly, yeah. Denmark, is it?
In
Sweden.
Yeah. Sweden. Ostersund's.
Yeah, you know, he's been respected everywhere he's been. And I feel, you know, he's got Brighton playing the right way, but they've not they've lacked that killer edge, haven't they? You know, I watched them a couple of times last season, and they had a lot of the ball, they move it quickly, they're easy on the eye. They're great to watch. But they just couldn't seem to kill games off. They would take the lead, or they'd struggle to take the lead, and a team would probably hit them on the counter-attack and nick a 1-0. And, you know, and I fear, you know, this season I thought they might go down the same route, but having watched the first two games, you know, okay, they probably should have scored more against Chelsea, but against Newcastle, they were fantastic. And I think Graham Potter's got to take a lot of credit for that. His win percentage for Brighton is only 27%, which I think is quite low. Having said that, you know, for a team that finished 15th, I suppose that was as expected. Well, you know, what's your take on Graham Potter?
Well, yeah, I like Graham Potter. I think for Brighton, bringing him in, it was a risk. I remember at the time it was kind of an almost be careful what you wish for. Because Chris Hughton, you know, had proven Premier League experience. Yeah, he might have kept Brighton up, but they weren't really moving forward under him. It would have been the same sort of just every season try and survive, always looking over your shoulder. With Graham Potter, they sort of bought into a sort of revolution of styles of play.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a risk.
Yeah.
And fair play to them. So it looks like it's paying off. First season, I think with Brighton, you mentioned it, they are very toothless. I mean, they play wonderful football. And I know they won 3-0 at the weekend. But against Chelsea, they should have had easily scored to 3 or 4 goals. But they are very toothless, and they do have a soft underbelly, meaning that when they're on top in games, they do concede soft goals. A lot of goals conceded from set pieces as well. So I think they've got to try and eradicate that. But certainly, I think I'll say something now, and this is testament to Graham Potter in his second season. I think this is the first year Brighton have been in the Premier League where they can actually look up and not down. I don't think they'll have any worries this season at all.
No.
And I think that's testament to Graham Potter, the style of football, the players he's brought in, which we'll move on to. And I just think, yeah, so I'm a massive fan of Graham Potter. Fair play to Brighton and Tony Bloom for taking the risk on an unproven manager in the Premier League. And yet it seems to have worked out for the best, because Brighton is certainly moving in the right direction.
So I read an article on where he's a manager that likes to utilise many systems. And at Swansea, he utilised, I think it was 3 systems in one game, maybe one half. But they went on to win the game, so the players were all for it. And from what I can tell from the article is that the players were more than happy to switch up the systems. So he seems like a very clever manager, and he's not just a one-trick pony. And I think, you know, like I say, he likes to get his teams to understand not just one system, but several. Which I suppose, if they're happy to do that, it could work in their benefit. But moving on from Graham Potter, obviously, you know, talk us through the transfers, Nave, the ins and outs of Brighton this season, or this summer, or the short period that they've had.
Yeah, well, you know, they have been quite busy in the transfer market this season. Probably the most notable signing they bought was Admiral Lallana on a free from Liverpool. Of course, in England international, great pedigree. Struggled with injuries. If Brighton can get him fit and playing, I think he did start in the first game. Actually, went off with a bit of a knock. I don't know the severity of that. But if they can get 25, 30 games a season out of him, what a signing on a free transfer, because a serious talent. And then they bought in Joel Veltman, another very shrewd bit of business from Ajax, I believe. A Dutch international, cheap centre-half experience, once again, great international pedigree. And alongside that, they brought in a few youngsters, Zach Emerson from Oldham, Jensen Weir, I think from Wigan was it, and then Lars Den Donker came in. Notably outs, a man very close to our heart, Anthony Knockaert, Tony.
Yeah.
Always seems to be the case. He does well to get a team out of the Championship, and then he hits the Premier League, and sadly, he just doesn't seem to be able to cut it at this level when he always ends up sort of dipping back down, as he has done with Fulham. Obviously, he got promoted with Fulham and they signed him, but it just seems Premier League seems to be a bit of a step too far for him. Aaron Moy, probably a surprise departure, gone off to China. Always liked Aaron Moy, very good industry in the middle of the park, but maybe didn't quite fit Graham Potter's style of play
Mm.
100%, so he's happy to move him on. Also, probably not the right profile of player. I mean, Brighton have got some cracking youngsters coming
Yeah,
through, and Moyes approaching his 30s, so maybe it was time to. He wasn't the right profile for what they want moving
yeah,
forward. Glenn Murray, veteran striker, gone out on loan to Watford in the Championship, guaranteed goals for Watford then in the Championship, and Shane Duffy has gone to Celtic in Scotland. So a bit of business, nothing too much to rock the boat.
no,
But I think we can both agree the best bit of business Brighton didn't happen this summer. Actually happened last January when they bought in a young man from Chelsea for £3 million. Young right back Tariq
yeah.
Lamptey, absolute
Yeah,
sensation.
yeah, you can't speak on highly enough about him, to be honest. We'll just touch on Adam Lallana before we move on. I did read somewhere that obviously that our club were in for the same player. There's rumours that he's on a big bumper
Yeah.
package, and let's bear in mind is he
Oh, yeah,
is he
of course.
31? Is he 32? He could be older than that. I'm not entirely
Yeah,
sure.
he's about 30,
I
31
think
with the body of a 64-year-old with
exactly.
all his
He's
injuries.
very injury prone. He's 31 years old, and I've heard he's on a bumper package on a 3-year contract, which
Yes,
which
I
I
believe
think
so.
is a risk personally. Now, if they can keep him fit for 3 years and he can stay at the top of his game for 3 years, then it's a great deal for all, and I'm sure Brighton will benefit. Having said that, I don't from that first game against Chelsea where he's already limped off. I'm not expecting Adam Lallana to
No,
break
it
any
doesn't
pots.
does not fill you with
No, not
confidence.
at all.
No,
But
made of glass a bit,
he
isn't he?
is.
Made of
He is
glass.
indeed. Moving on to obviously the competitions that Brighton are involved in this year and where we think they will potentially finish or what round they will get to. And Premier League, I think they'll finish. I think they'll finish about ninth. I know we've spoken about this off camera, and I believe they'll finish ninth. I think they'll be happy with that. I think that's a respectable finish. I think it's a massive improvement on last season, and it's a step in the right direction for Brighton. You know, a club that's not established. Well, they are now established in the Premier League, but they were not renowned to be in the top division. So to get into ninth and to start establish themselves in the top half, I think they'll take all day long. FA Cup, we went for round 5, which are
Yeah.
they going to take the domestic cup series? Do you think? Obviously, Carabao Cup, we've said quarter final. So
Well, I mentioned earlier in the video that I think this is the first season in the league. They're looking up rather than not down. I don't think there'll be any trouble in the league. So why not? Why not throw your eggs in the basket and go for a cup? I'm sure the men of Brighton would love a day out in London.
yeah, well, whether that's if we're allowed to go back, but we'll
Yeah, that's
speak
it.
about that on another
But
day.
no, but my point being, I think domestically in terms of the league they'll be fine. So they're in that they're going to be one of those clubs where you say, why don't you go for a domestic trophy? Why don't you throw your eggs in the basket of a Carabao or FA Cup?
Yeah, and I think, like you say, I think quarter final and maybe round 5 is probably a realistic kind of
Yeah,
aim for them. Depending on the draw, who they get. Look at the draw. I don't think they're quite good
that's it.
enough
Massive.
yet to compete with your Man Cities and your Liverpools. They'll probably give them a game, but I don't think they're good enough yet to get to a final and maybe win a game or maybe a semi-final. I think they're in that, like you say, they're a bit. The remind me of a bit like our team a few years ago. Mid-table, quarter-final most years, but just couldn't get that one step further.
Yeah,
But I think Brighton fans will take that all day long, to be honest.
certainly a club moving forward
100%, 100%.
in all aspects. In all
But
aspects.
on that bombshell, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of the All Eyes On series. And today, obviously, has been Brighton. Brighton fans, let us know what you think. Are you happy with Graham Potter? Do you feel he's taking you in the right directions? Your signings, have you been happy with them? The outs, would you like to have kept hold of some of them, or do you feel it was time to move on? And
Tariq Lamptey for the Ballon d'Or.
yeah, talk to us. Tell us about Lamptey. As a neutral, he looks fantastic. We can't praise him enough.
As England fans, very exciting.
Very much so. And also, the competitions that you're in, do you feel, you could probably go a bit further than a quarter final? Do you feel you could finish higher than ninth? A little bit ambitious, but, if you don't dream, you're never going
Stranger
to
things
come
happen
true.
in football.
Oh, have
Ask
they?
the Foxes.
Ask us. But anyway, as for now, it's been a pleasure, as always. Until next time, thank you. Take care.